Hello, and welcome back to the fourth hour of NPR. I'm sorry, it's just me. But that aside, I do have a little bit of a nasal thing going on today, so bear with me. We're going to kind of work through it here. But today I've got a new video. This is my dad's 9.5, but specifically this is a 2007 Saab 9.5. This is the second facelift, or the Dame Edna version, so to speak. So now this video, I mean, I could make so much content on this car, but in this video specifically, my goal is to kind of just give everyone a look at it and see what it's like, and then we're going to kind of compare it to the previous and then the 9.5 that followed this generation in a later video. But there are some significant things along the way that we'll kind of touch on, but we're going to kind of keep that limited. The other 9.5 that I have is, well, it was supposed to be, there was a little bit of rust on the dog legs and some paint work that needed done. That was going to be done. That was all scheduled. And then what happened was I talked to kind of the guy that does my body work and said, hey, let's postpone that. I don't care when, but let's get this car actually in to get this done, because remember, we needed to get this done pretty quick there for my dad. So anyway, enough about that. 2007 9.5, they were offered it basically with two trims. There was not really the base, but kind of like the luxury trim, and then there was the Aero, which was the sport trim. So some different bumper treatments, different wheels, different interior options. But starting here at the front, of course, this one's black. You'll notice the Dame Edna kind of refers to these kind of silly but interesting chrome bezels around the headlamps. Notice these are incandescent bulbs, but they do have xenon headlamps, so they look really nice. And again, 2007, I mean, that's kind of nice. I mean, that's kind of not standard on all cars, but standard on this one at the time. And I guess really we should kind of touch on this. So basically the 9.5 came out to replace the 9000, and in the US the 9.5 came out for us in 1999 for sedans and wagons, and then that ran until 2002, and then this version came out in 2006 and ran until 2009 when it was replaced by the second generation. So how to tell them apart? So the first generation, first off, it's going to have glass headlamps, and you'll notice the wipers on the front. After that, they switched to just regular washer jets like everybody else. You'll also notice that the thick body line molding kind of comes around the back, and then the bumper is kind of cut lower and just finishes off kind of at this point. So this one kind of sticks up a little bit more, looks a little bit more modern. They got rid of all that unpainted plastic cladding and kind of neatened it up a little bit, put some chrome on it. The first generation basically lost the blackened out rear tail lamps and went to just kind of clear ones, and then these lost kind of the amber and the clear area, and you just have a reverse light on the right and a fog light on the left. Also, the badging changed a little bit. After all, in 2001, Saab, the Saab badge lost the Scania emblem because Scania was no longer a part of it there. But yeah, some other features going back. So again, the washer jets, just totally different bumper and everything, different wheels. These are 17s. There were a bunch of wheel options over the years. They also changed out the lenses for the repeater light. These are clear, and they used to be amber on the other ones. Same kind of profile with the hood, except for kind of at the edge there. You'll notice the nice clamshell hood that these are known for, kind of harkening back to the 900, which was kind of the point of this car. The 9000 that came before it is a great car, but it was a little bit less like a Saab than other cars, so they kind of tried to make this more of a Saab, so to speak. Also, the later generation cars also got painted door handles. The first ones were just an unpainted black, like metal or plastic, and these are very aerodynamic. Very low drag coefficient on this car as well. Going back the side, no chrome trim, just real thin, low profile. Everything was designed to be extremely aerodynamic and thus reducing noise in the cabin, and this is indeed a very quiet car. Also, you have nice plastic in here to protect everything going up to the edge, so everything's all protected against snow and everything. Nice size brakes on this car, and again, these are nice 17-inch alloys. These brakes do work really well. You just kind of have to step on it a little bit, but we'll talk about that then. Going back the side, I think this car looks really nice with all the lines. I like how you have the lines that kind of come gracefully up at the back and then just end kind of at the tail lamp there. I think it's a very classy car, and I think it's aged really, really well. I also like the hockey stick kind of style. And by the way, in one of my videos, which I was checking out the other day, I said hockey puck, which sounded ridiculous. It's a hockey stick design. It's that line along the top of the roof here that comes back and then down. Also, some other features on this car. I mean, the window outline kind of looks like a Saab outline. I mean, that's a Saab look right there. Also, this glass in the back, the way that it bevels out and the way that it cuts down kind of deep there to a stubby trunk. And also, look at this glass at the front. Look how rounded that really is. I mean, this is definitely a Saab. We'll talk more about the Saab versus GM parts of this later, but this was definitely styled by Saab. You can tell that. That's very obvious. Nice cladding down below here. Nice kind of satin nickel exhaust tip. You have the high-mounted brake light. This does have Sirius XM radio, so you have the antenna up there. Fuel filler is on the passenger side. Again, everything is in really nice shape down this side as well. So we'll take a look here in the trunk. So this is an executive or like mid-size or entry-level luxury car, depending on what market you're in. So it's not a huge car, but it is trying to have huge car type qualities and also be pretty refined and sporty and nice to drive and have decent power. So starting with the trunk, I mean, this is a very big trunk, really, really huge. You have a spare tire down below. Everything's in really nice shape on this car as well. There's also a jack and the tool kit down there as well. So that's in good shape. You'll notice some parts, I mean, this is right off any other Saab. I had the same part on my classic 900, so some things have remained the same. Yeah, Saab. You'll notice some of the parts say Saab, some say GM, not very many. So I guess we'll just talk about the GM part of it now. So this did share the floor pan with the Vauxhall Vectra and then the Vauxhall Insignia. And then in the US it would be the Chevy Malibu, the later ones, and the Impala and the LaCrosse and all those, the higher end cars. But that's kind of about it, other than the brakes and the stereo. Pretty much everything was really Saab, and even everything that they did, I mean, all the metal is thicker than the GM cars. They're undercoated better. They're just so much more refined. And even if they're not, I mean, some of those cars aren't really terrible. The Buick here. The Buick isn't so bad. I really like the Impalas, of course, anyway. So, all right, here's your key fob. So, while the 9.3 was restyled in 2003 and 04 for convertibles, this key was remained the same from the 90s, pretty much on. So just lock, unlock, and then your trunk release. And I believe lock and unlock together are the alarm. Starting in the back here. So again, you have, as far as making everything quiet, you have the door seal at the top, you have the door seal at the inside. So basically the inside of the car, the outside, and then in between here on the window. So triple seals, and there's no paint that you're seeing. Everything is totally finished out right to the edges, right to the seals. It's a very sealed off car. It's really quiet, especially for the time and the price point, in my opinion. Nice wood trim. All the wood trim is in really good shape in this car. I really like Mercedes-Benz, but man, they just seem to have some problems with keeping the wood from cracking and chipping. And this is in fact real wood, and it is in really nice shape. I guess the earlier Saabs had issues with them, but seems like by this point they've got it all taken care of. I really like kind of some of the accents here and everything. I mean, that's definitely Saab. This is Saab. This is Saab. Those are all Saab parts. These door handles are kind of the same shape as the earlier ones, but they've changed the finish to satin nickel. So again, these doors were originally skinned with the older style door card, basically, which was more of like a vinyl looking piece. This is more of a plastic, but by this point all the cloth was gone and you got leather. So these cars were a little bit decontented, which is kind of where an automaker generally towards the end of a run will pull out some features to kind of cut cost and justify keeping the car around. And one of them was, in my opinion, they changed some of the interior features. The leather isn't quite the same as the earlier ones, and these are a little bit more plasticky, but again, it's not so bad. We'll get more into it, but I think it looks really nice. You have the dark and light. You have a little storage pocket, nice Harman Kardon audio system there. You have the scuff plate, although no longer saying Saab, sadly. You do still have vents back here on the side for the defrost, but the little pockets are gone from the earlier 9.5s. Nice pockets on the back of the seat here. You do have the heated rear seat with, and these were always blank. If anybody knows what went in that, I've never seen a car with anything there, because I know the whole rear seat was heated as one piece and not individually. So if anybody knows what that is, I'd be really curious to find out. Really nice legroom back here as well. These seats actually fold up, and then you can, put stuff here if you'd want. You can also, pressing this button right up here, you can fold the rear seat down, which gives you a ton of space back here as well. So we'll just flip this back up. Not the easiest to do with one hand, but there it is. You also have these nice headrests up here to come up, and then they just pop on back, if I can get it. There we go. So we'll put that back up. This rear seat is in really nice shape, and it's a really comfortable place to be. This car is kind of meant to be a little bit of a driver's car, but you know, in the rear seat you just want comfort, and I think this car nails it. You also have the center console here with the fold-out cup holder. A nice softly padded top here. I've got the police going by here. They're in my usual filming spot. Anyway, so this is a little bit of storage down here, and then a surface to write on. So I don't think that this is, I mean, they're not trying to make an S-Class basically, you know, with this, but you know, they wanted it so that people that were important could be fairly comfortable back here, and I think they did a really good job, and it certainly is a nice place to be. Generally, I try to get a seat in the front of the car, but this is one where I don't mind sitting in the back. So again, I'm like 5'10" or something. I've got plenty of room here, plenty of room all around. You know, just really nice. You got an armrest over here, armrest on this side. Everything's nice and soft, but also very supportive. You have a nice headrest. It's a really nice place to be. Also really nice headroom above. All right, so I'll fold all this back up. And there's also grab handles for every door. So very, very nice. And we'll start here on the passenger side with the front. So again, they still have the blank here for the mirror switch for the right-hand drive cars, but they did remove the switch for the trunk there. You'll notice, pardon me, I have the side piece off there. That one was broken, as they all are, so everybody knows that the side piece of the seat falls apart, so I'm re-gluing that, kind of re-engineering that, and then this is just the controls for the seats. But basically it's power recline fore and aft, and then you can kind of up and down for the seat bottom. Not too much on this side, same as the back. You do have a really nice glove box here with a light, and there is the climate vent there in the back, but it's huge. They also have this really nice rubber mat in it, which is really cool. And you do have this little storage compartment there. That's your access for the cabin air filter. I like that there's vents all across. Really does a nice job. I think we'll take a look under the hood next. And again, this car's being driven, so it's not super clean right now, you'll notice over here. But I apologize, but can't make everything perfect. It never stays. Not worth it. All right, and up comes the hood. And this one is hinged at the back. And wow, there's a lot of leaves in here. I did not realize that. They do have a way of kind of sneaking down here. I mean, this is a really wide cowl towards the bottom, so yeah, I'll have to clean that out then. I might cut the video and do that now, but anyway, underneath the hood, you do have this mat underneath here. Same kind of hood style, same latch operation as the earlier ones. We have the 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. So this is a little bit interesting. So my station wagon also has the 2.3 liter turbo 4, and that's a 1999, and that's got the 5-speed manual. So whereas that one put out about 170 horsepower, because the higher end motor at the time was the turbocharged 3 liter V6 making 200, that was kind of like the lower end offering. By this point they tuned it quite a bit, and this was at this point the only motor that you could get, but they tuned it to about 260 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. So the thing is, it was basically putting out the same power as a comparable Mercedes E-Class at the time, so that's kind of cool. It's pretty smooth and refined. It's kind of nice. It definitely feels like a Saab. It really does, but we'll talk about that more with driving. That's mated to a 5-speed ASM transmission, and that's very smooth, responsive. Again, we'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, kind of the same stuff here. I mean, these are all the parts that they've been using for years. Really nothing else has changed. This one does still have the battery cover, which is cool. Yeah, that's, you know, not a lot. You can see that they kind of kept the same cross member up here, but there's a different bumper assembly to it. The first version, there was kind of like a chrome piece that would come out for the center, and then you'd have the corner lamp and the tail lamp that would, or headlamp that would come out, and then they kind of fit that with a bumper that was one piece that went over everything in a different headlamp style. So, you know, at this point, I mean, here's the crazy thing about it. You take the floor pan and frame of another car, you reskin it to new sheet metal, and then you facelift it twice. So this was like the third time that they'd figured out how to design a headlamp assembly to fit this car. So the weird thing is that you'll notice these pieces right here, these chrome pieces, and you're like, what's behind that? Well, it's blocked off in the front, but it's actually the headlamp. If you look underneath, the headlamp actually continues a little ways under, because originally the headlamp would have been a little bit over there, you know, over to the center. So it's just a kind of a strange car in that regard. It's kind of weird to see the evolution of it, but, and of course the turbo's right down here in front underneath the heat shield there. So yeah, very interesting in that, like I said, in that regard. It's really strange. You usually don't see that, but okay, there we go. And of course, nice sunroof up here, up top. All right, moving on to the interior. On this side, you do have the trunk release here. And again, everything's in pretty nice shape on this car. Kind of impressive. All right, so you have your headlamp controls here. This controls the lights on the instrument cluster and panel. These are your front fog lamps. Those are the rears, or vice versa. I'll have to check. And then this is the night panel, so they'd moved it over here by this point. So again, the first generation had the SID, or SAAB information display, which was the center cluster with all the buttons on it. And that was kind of like the trip computer. The second generation went to an electronic SID. And in the third generation, which is this one, everything kind of moved to the center. So let me go ahead and start this up and close the door, and we'll take a little bit of a look. All right, so of course, in traditional SAAB fashion, we have the key in the center here in the console. Starts right up nice and smooth. All right, so before, you would have the SID, and then the radio, and then the climate controls. So they'd switch that to have the SID right here in the center cluster, and then that gets controlled from these controls right here on the steering wheel. I'm going to go ahead and turn this climate control off, which is, okay, there we go. All right, so you can cycle through here, and again, this car, 26,839 miles. So it gives you all your readouts that you would expect. Kind of the same as the SID had, but, you know, kind of nice for the time. All right, and then, so the night panel will turn all of that off. So all the gauges go, they don't just dim, they actually will shut off, and so will the radio, so that's kind of cool. We'll get to that radio in a second. And then this is your traction control here, which was standard. The only options this car doesn't have are the automatic wipers and the rear parking sensors, and like it's not the aero trim, so that means that you get these wood accents as opposed to the satin nickel, and you get the different bumpers and wheels and suspension and things like that. But otherwise, it's fairly loaded. Also doesn't have OnStar, which, you know, I'm good with that. Or at least this one was an option with it. I don't really know if they offered that at the time. I'm not much of an OnStar guy, but either way. So this is your cruise control over here: on, off, set, accelerate. Also your turn signal. On this side, these are your wipers, same as basically all the other SAAB cars. You can set exactly what you want there, and then, you know, intermittent, low, and high. So the interesting thing is that this is a new steering wheel. So they designed a new steering wheel, which looks really nice. I'm just moving the seat back here. Looks really nice. I like the perforated leather. I like the grips here. This also has, I don't really want to say paddle shifters, but transmission gear selectors, let's say, on the column. I like the chrome accents. It's really nice. Of course, if this fits a standard GM airbag, they'd change that by that point. So it's a really nice steering wheel and everything, but you'll notice the clamshell of the steering column and the stalks are the same. So it's kind of a weird, you know, old meets new world. It's just kind of an odd thing. And the oddest thing is really here in the center, because this is a GM radio. If you look in a Chevy Impala or a Malibu or something like that, this is pretty much the same radio with a few exceptions. This is a satin nickel finish. This is the high-end radio. This has the 6-disc changer. So this is the one that they offered, but yeah, at the end of the day, didn't really end up in very many cars. This would have been the one that would have been offered in like a Chevy or something like that, but really would have come in a Cadillac. So it's not super interesting. They also had, over some points of the car's run, they did have kind of like a touchscreen satellite navigation type system, but I've never actually seen one in person, so I don't know how prevalent they are. This does have auxiliary. Like I said, it's a 6-disc changer, AM, FM, XM radio. They did go to the trouble of, like I said, making everything satin finish, and then also adding these nice satin nickel finish trim pieces there as opposed to the chrome, which is kind of cool. Also, they changed the readout to be green, and you know, it works really well. It's actually a really nice radio, and it works really well with this Harman Kardon. I believe it's a Logic 7. Yeah, but anyway, either way, Harman Kardon audio system that just sounds great. Probably sounds great with that new ABBA album that's out now, which is kind of neat. Down here we have the automatic climate control, so it's dual zone for temperature, but then it's just a single zone as to where the air goes out. You can defeat the AC. This does have heated seats. Also, this car doesn't have ventilated seats. That's another feature that it's lacking, which frankly I'm good with. The wagon has ventilated seats, which is really odd. Okay, moving on to the shifter here. So again, they kind of changed this bezel a little bit, changed the shelf that's around it and everything, so that's kind of neat. Gone is the winter mode. That was only for the 4-speeds, but they didn't redesign the bezel, so the jalousie issues that they had continue, but that's not a big deal. They still sell those parts. This one's been replaced. It's darn easy to do. I found a way to kind of cut the time. I can change one of these out pretty much factory in about 5 minutes, so it goes really well. I should do a video on it probably. But this is a really nice ergonomically correct shifter. It really fits your hand. Feels really nice to use. I think it looks really cool. Of course, you have the sport button right on the top. It's leather wrapped, and then I'm not really sure. I don't know if that's metal or composite, but it feels very sturdy. It feels really nice. You also have the lock button here in the center, which is the best part. When you hit this lock button, it's loud. They did not... There we go, do all four. They did not dampen that much at all. So just like the earlier 9.5s, that remains. In the center, you have your window lockout here and all your window controls. These are automatic down in the front, but not automatic up. You also have the handbrake here, which is kind of coming apart. Kind of sad. I mean, that just really shouldn't happen on a car with this low mileage, but it's kind of sad. I like that they've run carpet all up the side here of the console, which is kind of cool. Now there is a cup holder inside the console here, but there's a bunch of personal stuff in there, so we'll leave that. But you do have this nice piece here that kind of rolls out, and then you have the coin sorter there, and you have this cup holder up here, which is really cool. Overhead, you have the dual visors with, again, the same very dim lamps of the earlier 9.5s. So these are a little bit different, but kind of remain the same, and then there's two of them there. You've got one for the side, one for the front. Just kind of a rare option that I find really cool and occasionally extremely useful. So above that, you have this nice sunroof here, same as before. This is automatic, so it will tilt up and then also roll back. So we'll just go ahead and run that back. This one here controls your lights off and then with the doors and then on. This one here is a little reading lamp, which you can point wherever you like. Really cool. Your fasten belts lamp there that goes out when you buckle up. This is the upgraded mirror, or at least by this point the base mirror. I'm going to go ahead and close this sunroof, but that opens up really nice, and no wind deflector, I believe. I think they got rid of that, so that's good. The earlier ones were problematic, and you can always add one aftermarket. Go ahead and close that. So this mirror is automatic self-dimming, and it also has a compass and a home link garage door opener, so that's really cool. There's your sensor for the automatic climate control, and then behind that is the LED for the alarm. And you'll notice that the interesting thing is, like, if the hood continued into the car, it would pretty much be the shape of the dash, at least on the driver's side, which is really neat. And also notice that there are 3 nozzles with 2 jets each for the headlamp, for the windshield washer system, I should say. All right, now sitting in the car, everything's extremely comfortable. These seats are very supportive. Everything falls right to hand, which is really nice. All the controls are easy to use. Everything that you use commonly is kind of, right at what you're looking at, and then the less common things are a little bit further down. It's really nice. Good leg room, good shoulder room. It's extremely wide. This passes my test of, I don't like cars where you can like reach over to the door. I like enough room where you can only really reach over the bolster, and in this one you can. This is really nice. Again, these were, in the US, these were classified by the EPA as a mid-size sedan, but I think by the size that they are, they're classified as a large, so I don't know. It's a really big mid-size sedan, let's just put it that way. But again, really nice, and everything's in really nice shape in this car aside from a little bit of dirt, so really nice. I'm going to now take it out on the road. We'll give it a drive and see what it's all about and talk about some other stuff with this car. So as I'm just leaving here, I wanted to mention there's a little bit more decontenting that's been done. Nothing really major, and again, that's kind of like You know, that's kind of the point of all this. They were kind of trying to keep the car going and keep it popular and selling well. So I don't have an issue with them changing anything. A couple things are lacking. Again, like I said earlier, it does feel a little bit more plasticky, which is not great, but it's fine. Everything feels good. There's no squeaks or rattles. It's not terrible. It's very nice fit and finish still, of course. They've eliminated the release for the fuel filler door, so that's no longer locking. And they've also deleted the courtesy lights for the rear doors, but not the front, which, again, I mean, if that's what I think that's a fair price to pay to be able to keep this car in production. And again, coming out in 1997 as a 1998 model in Europe, those were the original ones. You know, they knew this car was going to be on the road for a really long time, so I think they started with a really good car to begin with and then kind of were able to adapt it over time. And that's kind of the Saab thing, is that it's kind of an evolution, not a revolution. So they did do a really nice job of kind of keeping this going for, frankly, a really, really long time. I mean, nobody keeps cars like that. When this car came out, the W210 Mercedes E-Class had just come out, and basically this car came out during the early days of the 210. It outlasted the W211 and basically ended just about the time when the W212 was on the market. So it's kind of crazy to think that, you know, Mercedes-Benz, and you know, they keep cars around a long time as well, but not this long. So that's kind of a long time to keep a car around and still keep it fresh. But I think they've done a really nice job. So the big question, does it feel like a GM car? Does it feel like a Chevy Malibu? Well, it does, in that it's a decent family car, but that's about it. You know, don't forget, this is a genuine Saab engine. It's not a GM transmission. I mean, Saab didn't make this transmission, but it's not a GM transmission. It's not a GM suspension. It's not a GM interior. It's no GM seats. It's not GM steering. None of it. The only thing in the cabin is really just the radio. Otherwise, everything else is Saab. And even if it wasn't, I mean, the shifter is the same as out of the original versions of the 9.5. So even if it's changed underneath, it still kind of has the same feel. It definitely feels like a Saab. Definitely drives like a Saab. I mean, this car is it's kind of interesting to describe because they're trying to tick a lot of boxes with it. After all, Saab really only was making 2 models around this time of their own. There were some other rebadged ones, but they were trying to, you know, grab a lot of customers with the models that they had, and I think this one does a good job. But there's some weird lines that are blurred, because this feels kind of like a BMW 5 Series crossed with like an older American sedan that's just spacious with a soft ride and is really comfortable and a nice thing to drive. Because just driving down the road here, this soaks up all the bumps. It's very comfortable. The seat's very comfortable. You have great visibility. That's one main thing about this. The visibility is ridiculous, because it wasn't, you know, it was designed when the belt line, which is where the top of well, basically the bottom of the window glass is, the belt lines were a lot lower. Cars were a lot lower. They didn't have such high front ends, so you have great visibility. But back to the GM thing and Saab, no, it feels very different. It definitely feels like a Saab turbocharged car, and the quality is there as well. I really do think they did a nice job with that, and it's really nice. I really like, I mean, ultimately, I'm a little biased towards the first generation of 9.5 because I really like some of the durability of those cars. I like the glass headlamps, and the interiors just would seem like they were going to last forever. But again, this one is 15 years old and it looks fine, admittedly with lower miles, but clearly this one is holding up as well. So again, that's just kind of my bias showing through. But no, it's a very nice car to drive and extremely enjoyable. So driving this car, my first impressions, I mean, it's really nice and smooth. The ride is excellent. Steering is kind of light, which I like. You know, going into this, I have to say, I'm biased. I love these cars. And, you know, I didn't like the cars and then have to reverse engineer a way to love them. I drove one for the first time. I was like, wow, I really like that. And it went from there, and that's kind of what started all this. So that aside, I am biased towards these because, you know, there's no perfect car. You have to just pick what you can live with, and for me, this is really, really close to what is perfect for me. Different things like, I really like light steering. That's nice. As far as the ride, so the ride on this is phenomenal. It soaks up bumps unbelievably well, but it also handles really well over country roads and things, and over lousy pavement. So it's probably more biased towards comfort, which again I like. So that's one of the nice things about it. It's also really quiet. I really like cars that are quiet, and especially when you're surrounded by nice materials, it just makes for a really nice, pleasant driving experience. And this certainly does that. I also really like the audio system, which is just phenomenal, as is typical of all 9.5s since the beginning. It's just really, really nice. And earlier I said this car had been decontented, and that's really not fair. I guess the content really had changed, because the earlier 9.5s didn't have an auxiliary input, they didn't have a CD changer, they didn't have a self-dimming mirror, they didn't have as much wood trim. So there were, there's changes. These are really nice. These are really nice cars. But yeah, driving it is like I said, maybe probably like this time for the fifth time, it drives really nice. Braking is really good. You kind of have to bury your foot in the pedal a little bit, but it'll get you there. The brakes are really nice and big. And as far as responsiveness of the engine, turbo lag is pretty much gone. I mean, a 2.3 liter turbo, well, rather a 2.3 liter engine isn't really that small, and really wasn't that small back then, so you get decent power to begin with, and then the turbo is just kind of the icing on top of that. But you can put this in drive and just leave it, or you can put it in sport mode. Some cars you get in and you can't really tell if it's in sport mode or not, and it doesn't really make a difference. It just says it, and makes you feel a certain way. This is not one of those. This one you can definitely tell. It's quick for a downshift, and holds on to gears longer, and seems to make the engine a little bit more responsive. So it's really cool. You can also bump it back into manual and shift it off these paddles, which is surprisingly responsive, because even cars that had proper paddle shifters around that time weren't very responsive. This is surprising. It's not perfect, but it's surprising, and that's kind of neat. So we'll put it in sport then and give it a little test. But otherwise, everything else works good. Climate control is really nice. I like that it keeps the fan off until there's actually warm air, which is really cool. And when you turn everything off, it shuts off the heated seats, all of it. The stereo is easy to control. The steering wheel is really nice. The grips are a little bit high, but it works. It looks cool anyways. Again, great visibility, nice and quiet. This sunroof is extremely quiet on the highway. I said earlier the wind deflector is gone. Doesn't matter. You can put the vent open, and you really don't hear it at highway speeds. It is a little bit noisy unless you have the cover closed. So I generally have that closed, but it's beautiful out today, so we'll leave it open. And yeah, otherwise just a really, sixth time, a nice driving car. I'm just kind of going up over a hill here, and I popped it into sport, and it'll take off. It'll take off there. It dropped from 2,000, or jumped from 2,000 to 5,000 RPMs, and we're flying. If you can't tell, it's unbelievable. It's really, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to. It's honestly right up there with BMW, in my opinion, as far as that much of a dramatic change. It absolutely will get up and go, and there's just a rumble with it, and all the excitement of the turbo. It's just a really neat car. It's really surprising. I really wasn't expecting that. The other 9.5 that I have, the earlier ones, the turbo's kind of dialed out a little bit. It's a little bit more higher end. They're borderline slow, possibly, depending on what your taste is. This fixes all that. I mean, 260 horsepower is really good, and then you look at what it's being created by, and I think that's really impressive. And it works really well with this 5-speed transmission. And again, here we go again. I mean, absolutely just pulls like a train. It's unbelievable. And it's still quiet. You can have the stereo system on and just have a real nice, relaxing drive at a high rate of speed. So definitely no problem. Definitely no problem getting on the highway or keeping up at highway speeds. It is a little bit, in sport mode, it would be a little bit odd in traffic, because it'll grab. It's very peaky almost. It really is, but it's impressive. I'll take that for something like this, and we'll do another run here in a minute. It's not just the power that this creates, but it's just the way that it does it. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be all that surprising. This car was about as powerful as its competitors, but definitely a little bit lighter. But wow, it just doesn't accelerate like any other car, and certainly it is a little bit high at the higher end. But wow, just not like any other car that's out there. just love the turbo gauge coming up to speed there, and just the way it sounds. It's incredibly smooth. It's really kind of surprising how smooth it is for a 4-cylinder. They did do a really good job with the, you know, management of vibration and everything, but you know, really nice. And here we are doing 65, something like that, and yeah, very nice, very quiet, just as it should be. It really does feel like a Saab. So in summary, to me, the 9.5 at this point is an impressively comfortable, reliable, powerful, smooth riding, high quality vehicle that I really like. And it's definitely worth taking a shot at. Definitely something fun to go for a ride in. If you know somebody that has one, have them give you a ride. I'm sure they'll be happy to. But this is just a really neat car. I'm really surprised at just how nice this is, really, and hope this one is in our fleet for a long time. So hopefully I've done it justice. I'm sure there's things I've forgotten, and again, I will cover it a little bit more in depth when we compare this car to the old one and kind of look at what's changed and everything. But again, just kind of trying to keep this one more of a conventional tour as per my channel there. And yeah, so we'll see you with the next one. Thank you very much for watching.